We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Welcome in. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend with your phone calls and your comments. Let's get to it. Breaking news. Michigan's football program is under investigation. Once again, let me lead off. We don't know if it's true. We do not know if the allegations are true. It's an investigation. We do not know if it's true. Michigan could be innocent. Absolutely 100% innocent. Having said that, they are being investigated, and I've already seen comments. I've been going back and forth with a couple people on Twitter. They're already moving the goalposts as they talk to me about this. Look, what they're being investigated on is against the rules. And we talked about this at Peek Around the Corner. It doesn't mean Michigan's guilty of it. What I'm saying is there's always going to be rules, and they're always going to have to be enforcement of the rules. They are in the pro leagues. They got to be in the college space as well. And the defense can't be everybody does it. If you know that somebody is doing what Michigan is alleged to have done, then go tell the NCAA. But don't tell me about it. Now, what is Michigan being investigated on? Let's get to the story. First of all, Nick Auerbach from the Big Ten. Late Wednesday afternoon, the Big Ten Conference and the University of Michigan were notified by the NCAA that the NCAA was investigating allegations of sign stealing by the University of Michigan football program. Continued from Nicole Auerbach. The Big Ten Conference has notified Michigan State University and future opponents. The Big Ten Conference considers the integrity of competition to be of the utmost importance and will continue to monitor the investigation. Now, many of you who don't know this story broke or think, well, if it's true, we don't know if it's true. We have no idea if it's true. Michigan could be innocent of this allegation. 100% could be innocent of this investigation. But if it is true, it is a violation. Now you might say, well, again, stealing hand signals, that's all part of the game. It is in the game itself, but not prior to the game. Let's take a look at Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger, and Dan Wenzel. Let's take a look. We will be taking your phone calls later in the show. Plus, ladies and gentlemen, I can give you the update from the Florida State money perch. That was the story we were going to lead with this afternoon. I got a little bit of an update. Remember a couple of days ago on a live show? In fact, 2 live shows ago, I said we had an update, a back and forth with the Florida State money perch. So we're going to have an update. It's just a little bit of a nugget, but again, I think it's leading us somewhere. And we've got the okay. This came from B. Tim and Associates. We got the okay to report it. So we've got a stacked show this afternoon. But this story pops up. We're going to cover it first. National story. Michigan. The NCAA is investigating the Michigan football program for allegedly violating rules that prohibit teams from scouting in person future opponents. Industry sources told Yahoo Sports. The allegations pertains to NCAA bylaw 11.6.1, which reads, off campus, in person, scouting of future opponents in the same season is prohibited. Prohibited. Not allowed. The Big Ten Conference received notification from the NCAA that the organization is conducting an investigation into the Wolverines, a league spokesperson said. The spokesperson declined to confirm any more details. Late Wednesday afternoon, the Big Ten Conference and the University of Michigan were notified by the NCAA that the NCAA was investigating allegations of sign stealing by the University of Michigan football program. The Big Ten, in a subsequent statement released Thursday, it's also on the Big Ten Twitter account, the Big Ten Conference has notified Michigan State University and future opponents. The Big Ten Conference considers the integrity of competition to be utmost. We talked about that in the Nicole Auerbach tweets. Teams are normally provided an extensive video footage to scout opponents. At issue, according to sources, is whether Michigan used unnamed individuals to attend games of both scheduled opponents and possible college football playoff opponents in an effort to gather information on the signs they used to call both offense and defensive plays. So the issue is, whether Michigan used unnamed individuals, directed unnamed individuals in pursuit for Michigan's football to attend games, to scout, to gather information on the signs that their future opponents were using in offensive defensive plays. Sign stealing is not technically prohibited and has a long, colorful history as part of the game. Scouting opponents in person has been prohibited since 1994. This is not a new rule. Everybody knows about it. If you're a head coach of a football program, you know about it. You steal signs during the game. You go back in the history of the opponent and see what signs they used in prior years. You try to pick up the hand signals, steal the hand signals early in the game, but you are prohibited in person to scout future opponents. Whether the NCAA believes Michigan was using staffers or others who may be loyal to the program is unknown. Again, Michigan could be 100% innocent of this allegation, of this investigation. So too is whether information was detailed via video or some other means, or if the head coach, Jim Harbaugh, is involved. Michigan is 6-0, ranked number 2 in the country, heading into the rivalry game Saturday at Michigan State. The Spartan staff was notified of the situation earlier this week. Now, this next part, I'm still investigating this last part here. I've got a couple calls in. I got to be careful with this next part. So everybody in the chat, everybody that's watching the show, I'm going to throw up this allegedly coming out of PATC. Now, The Athletic has just come out with an article, Michigan football facing allegations of sign stealing. The Big Ten Conference approached Michigan State University on Wednesday with what is described as credible evidence that the University of Michigan program has successfully stolen signs by this illegal means, right? Scouting in person before. So the Athletic is saying credible evidence, what they're being told. Let's get back to the article. I want to be careful here. 2 of the Michigan's opponents this season told Yahoo Sports they became aware that Michigan knew their play signs. Sign stealing does not violate NCAA rules unless the team uses in-game electronic equipment to relay information to the players on the field or amongst coaches. So during the game, this isn't about stealing signs in the game. I see already in the chat room, people are confusing this. And there's a major college football person who I've gone back and forth with on Twitter already, who confused the whole subject as well. You can steal signs during the game as long as you're not relaying information to players on the field with the electronic means. And of course, you can't do in-person scouting of your future opponents. The 2023 NCAA football rulebook addresses sign stealing in a general way. and states any attempt to record either through audio, video means any signals given by an opposing player, coach, or other team personnel is prohibited. Now it talks about here 2 of the Michigan opponents this season told Yahoo Sports they became aware that Michigan knew their play signs. That's what I want to get to right now. 2 of Michigan opponents this season. I've asked this question on Twitter. I've asked this question with a couple of people who follow Minnesota sports, Minnesota Gophers, who it's their job to report on this. We are pretty convinced, but not 100. I'm checking messages here. There's a lot of stuff going on. We are convinced that Minnesota is one of the 2 teams. We do not have that confirmed. Now, as you know, unfortunately, my beloved Minnesotan Gophers got crushed, and they would have gotten crushed even if Michigan didn't have the hand signals prior to the game or electronically communicated during the game or what have you. Michigan could have named their score against Minnesota irregardless. No question about it. But at the end of that game, in the post-conference, there was mention, and I want to be careful here because we're trying to nail down the conversations post-press conference, University of Minnesota. The players threw up their hands and said, and there was more than one of them that said, they knew our plays. They knew our hand signals from the very get-go. I mean, it was like, we didn't have a chance. Now, of course, Michigan's a lot more talented than Minnesota. Great coaching staff. We all know this. They were going to kill the Minnesota Golden Gophers irregardless. But it was strange that the Gopher players were frustrated. Like, they knew we couldn't do anything. They knew exactly what we were doing. Is that great coaching? Possibly. No question about it. Jim Harbaugh has a great coaching staff. He's a great head coach himself. Michigan players are talented. Great team stacked. But this was the first time I ever heard this in a press conference. And I'm not going to give any names yet, but there was some, like, the team knew right away, holy smokes, our hand we couldn't even out of light. We couldn't do anything. Michigan knew exactly where to be in all places. So there's 2 teams. It doesn't mention the 2 teams in Yahoo Sports, but I got a feeling that Minnesota was one of the teams. Now, one other thing. I'll get to your comments, but I got to get to the Florida State money perch as well. A lot of people are accusing me of making excuses for Minnesota. No, Minnesota was going to get trucked by Michigan regardless. That's not the point. The point is, if it's true that Michigan has sent personnel, people representing Michigan to scout hand signals, to videotape, to learn hand signals from their opponents, even playoff opponents, potential playoff opponents, like Yahoo Sports said, well, then we have a significant breach of fairness of competition from somebody inside the Michigan football program. It might not lead to Jim Harbaugh. It's odd that if this is happening that Jim Harbaugh would not know, because he can see his team knows exactly what to do. Any package, any hand signal the opponent puts up. Let me show you something else on here. Again, I just read this off my phone. Here it is. The Big Ten has approached Michigan State with what is described as credible evidence that Michigan has successfully stolen signs by opposing teams this season in a way that goes against fairness and competition goes against the rules, as we described earlier. Again, you can steal signs within the game itself, but not prior to. You can't send a fleet of your staff, some personnel to your future opponent games, videotape, record, analyze their hand signals, and then learn throughout the week what you should do when the opponent puts up hand signals. Again, let me get back to something else here going on. For example, and I'm not putting this up here to pick on the individual. People can disagree. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with me in the chat. If Michigan did this, a lot of people are going to say it doesn't matter. Who cares? Everybody does it. You know, all that stuff. Here's a gentleman, Jake J-Boy Crane, host of national sports show, The Crane Company. Okay. So right away, I'm not picking on the individual. I'm just saying how people are looking at this differently. Of course, now I lost what I was going to do here. Hold on. Okay, I guess I didn't want that. Right here. Stealing signals is part of the game. That was his first take on it. Yeah, it is part of the game. It is. But sending personnel to future opponent games to scout other teams' hand signals is not part of the college game. Stealing hands signals during the game, there is a difference. And then Jake J-Boy Crane kind of changed his tune, moved the goalposts and said, pretty much everyone does this. People change signals yearly. It's part of it. I promise. Yes, teams do change their hand signals yearly. They do not change them weekly. That's why it's prohibited to go to your future opponents and steal the hand signals. Everyone breaks the rules. It's different than this isn't breaking the rules. Hope this is helpful. Again, Jake says, my point is Michigan seems to be the only school being held accountable when everyone else does it. Everyone else does it. Then I made a comment. It's against the rules. If you have evidence, Ohio State, Penn State, or Sam Houston is sending personnel to future opponents to steal hand signals, contact the NCAA. Again, we do not know if Michigan is guilty of this allegation. They could be 100% innocent. But again, the defense of everybody does it, or hand signals are just part of the game. They're not being alleged stealing hand signals during the game, and then that's part of the game. But prior to the game it starts, that's where it's prohibited. It's spelled out. They're being investigated. And supposedly from the Athletic, their sources are saying that the Big Ten has told Michigan State that they have credible evidence that Michigan is violating what is in the rule book. Now, how extensive is this, the credible evidence, if it's true? Is it sending personnel representing Michigan to future opponents, grabbing all those hand signals, videotaping, showing it to the players or showing it to the coaches? And then they know the Minnesota or the future opponent hand signals? Or is it something that's even going on during the game with electronic use? Interesting. We do not know. And again, we do not know if Michigan is guilty or not. I want to thank everybody for coming on in to the chat. And then we're going to get to the Florida State story. Then we're going to get to your phone calls. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. We stay alive with your donations. So if you want to put a comment, we get to it as quick as possible. Do a deep dive on it. Please hit the $ with the donation. We appreciate you all for coming in this Thursday afternoon. David Hackett, hello, Greg. Big games this weekend. No question about it. Eva Badger is in the house. Tumasta is in the house. Harbaugh, if this is true, yes, another excuse for Harbaugh to go jump to the NFL. Jared McKinley, I am convinced the NCAA has an issue with Michigan. We're foolishly the only big-time program who doesn't tell them to get bent when they come around, and we always get penalized harshly when others don't. Jared McKinley. JD Turtle, go Greg, the PATC Iron Man. Thanks for coming on in, JD Turtle. Kirk Bender, hi Greg, I wonder what's happening up north. Kenneth Evans, he's in the house. Immaculate is in the house. Go Black 45 is in the house. Mr. Monkey says they had weeks to steal TCU signs. Yeah. Yes, they did. Nick Kelso's in the house. Nathan Barnett is saying Harbaugh's not going to the NFL. Jerry Jones. Imagine if Michigan State wins Saturday after this comes out. I don't think so. But again, Michigan could be 100% innocent. But the defense that everybody does it, or the defense that this is not really breaking the rules, or they don't need to be a rule, whatever, I just don't agree with that. If you got evidence that the Buckeyes are doing this, go to the NCAA. Go do it. If the Buckeyes are sending out a crew of guys, 2 or 3 people or whatever, to future opponents, and they're sitting there scouting, they're sitting there stealing these signals, and then they can analyze it weeks before their big games, send it to the NCAA. Stealing hand signals is part of the game, but again, there are rules. This has been a rule since 1994. And I want to be careful. I do not know if Minnesota is part of this investigation. When Yahoo Sports says there's 2 teams, there's 2 teams that know that Michigan had their signals. I don't know if Minnesota is one of them, but I do know that Minnesota complained about it right after the game. So did they say something? I don't know. And I've never heard players complain about that before. At least not, I'm watching the Minnesota Post press. I've never heard that before. One guy just threw up his hands and said they knew our hand signals. He said it directly. I don't know. It's tough enough. Look, Michigan could be 100% innocent. But, it's tough enough to beat a great program like Michigan. It's almost impossible. And if they're going to have your hand signals, if they're guilty, holy smokes. If they're going to know what you're doing, if they know what you just audibilized in and out of, forget about it. Just forget about it. It ain't happening. If you're not a blue blood football program, if you're not a helmet school, and that helmet school has all your hand signals prior to the game, all the coaches know the defense, offense, forget about it. Forget about it. Again, Michigan could be, without question, 100% innocent of these charges, and Minnesota might not be one of the schools that gave up evidence or complained. They may not have been. But I know that the Gophers players, some of them literally threw their hands up in the air. Went like that. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. So, Go Black 45. Suddenly all trash cans and bats have been removed from the Michigan sidelines. Okay, so I understand why Michigan fans find this comical or are blowing it off. I get it. Michigan wasn't going to lose any of the games they've already played. I get it. No question about it. They could name their score against any of those opponents they have played before this came out. So, and maybe it is true that other teams are doing it. For me, though, that's not a defense. I'm telling you, the old everyone does it, or we shouldn't have every NFL has this rule, by the way. NFL, you can't sneak on the practice field. There's a whole bunch of rules that the NFL has and the college football world has. You got to have rules because there's got to be at least some perception of fair competition. Okay, now, Florida State money perch. Again, we did not advertise this for this live show. I was going to, but I advertised the alleged Michigan allegations. The Florida State money perch told us Sunday some information in regards to what is going on with Florida State. We wanted to go live, I believe, Monday. I talked about it on Monday, but we had to go questions back and forth. Later in the day, Tuesday, we got some answers back, even during the live show, but our show was so stacked anyways that I decided that we just couldn't proceed with it. Yesterday, I did not have a live show, did not have an episode. I was working on a project, trying to do a little something different. I had a project here for PATC, and the thing went pear-shaped on me. It did not work, what I was trying to do. So I wasted the whole day doing something that I was failing at. So today, we're going to talk about it. And again, we have new people on this show all the time. So just give me 15 seconds to explain what it's all about. What the Florida State money perch is all about. Somebody who gave us information December 26, 2022, that somebody representing Florida State was going to come out in public and talk about how things are going to have to drastically change, or we are going to have to look at basically realignment. 2 months later, it happened. Mike Alford said it in February 24th. On December 22, 2026, the Florida State money perch told us. He actually first told us December 4th, December 11th, December 18th. But whatever. Then we finally came out with it live December 26, 2022. He also said that the first quarter of 2024 was the plan for Florida State to take the next step in to try to get out of the ACC. And he said this, we reported December 26, 2022. The Florida State money perch did not know anything about that Magnificent Seven meeting. He was blown away just like everybody else. The story that Ross Dellinger broke, and then Brett McMurphy was able to get the names of those 7 universities on the first day of the ACC spring meetings. The Florida State money perch, basically, he told us on Sunday, we had some questions, he answered it. The perception of the big money at Florida State, the perception is, now some of this ain't going to be a surprise because we've already delivered the changes in the Holy Smokes Theater. Greg Sankey went up into the VIP box at the Holy Smokes Theater. He's sitting in a separate box from Peter Collins, but the boxes are right next to each other in the balcony, overlooking the stage at the Holy Smokes Theater. Well, the big money at Florida State, their perception of where this is going, and we got a percentage on it. He told us the percentage. Florida State Money Perch believes that it's right now. This was back on Sunday. So today's the 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th, 15th. October 15th, he relayed to us that the Florida State perception, the big money, that there's about an 80% chance, 8 out of 10, that the Florida State Seminoles will become an SEC school by 2027. It may happen by the 2027 football season. It may happen by the 2026 football season. They believe it's the SEC who's got the inside track. The SEC's got the inside track. Now, we were the other people we talked to, this has been a growing chatter. Growing chatter. It's why we put Sankey in, one of the reasons. One of the reasons why we put Greg Sankey into the Holy Smokes Theater. It's why we have him sitting up next to Peter Collins, not quite in the same box. Florida State, the money, we're not talking administration, although we're not talking administration. We're talking money in and around the university and the athletic department. 80% chance Florida State becomes an SEC member on or before the year 2027. We asked the following questions. Is there a perception among Florida State big money in regards to Clemson? Are they tied together? Is there a perception around Florida State money? The Florida State money perch has been real accurate, just like the rest of the money perch people we talk to. We know who these people are, obviously. We know who they talk to, obviously. Our track record, you can do whatever you want to talk about a track record. I feel pretty comfortable that history's will be very kind to us. We asked questions. We wanted to open this thing up ever more. His answer was he did not feel comfortable in talking about Clemson. In fact, the discussions that he has isn't not about Clemson. Now, they might be tied together, but this isn't Florida State. This isn't about the people he talked to. Their discussions are not around Clemson. They're definitely not around North Carolina. So his scope is limited. Now, he's not saying that it's all lined up. In fact, he said it isn't. Like we've been saying for a couple months. He says it's not something that's locked down. But there is a definite some sort of communication, something unofficially official that's been told to some big money, the collective, whatever, saying that it looks like there's going to be a path for Florida State into the SEC. Now, does that eliminate the Big Ten? No. No, we're not declaring that. We're not declaring it. We're not, but we're giving you a peek around the corner on the people who have an invested interest, who talk amongst each other, who have connections, some of them with administrators. Now, do administrators know exactly what's going to happen? No. Nope. They don't. We don't have a crystal ball here, peek around the corner. But we do give you an accurate peek around the corner. I think what we were told outside from the Florida State Money Perch and what we have been told by the Florida State Money Perch is all consistent. And it's all connected. If I hoist my Cloak and Dagger mug, have a drink, if I give you my best shot, which I will, I think there's been I think the SEC and Greg Sankey, how do I say this? Do you remember when I used to say things like, Colorado's at the center of the stage, and there's going to be articles written about this, and the Pac-12 took a shot to the solar plexus. I said that on May 8th. It happened. It was about the May 7th meeting in Chicago, which I couldn't get into. I kept saying, you're going to read articles about this, and those articles eventually came out. That's what this is. I think I can steer you all comfortably in the direction of, at some point here, I don't know, September, maybe, something where the SEC took a different approach to the future realignment that's going to happen. And I think they let it be known to some players, Florida State, maybe others, that, yeah, you're going to have a home if that's what we can do to achieve it. Indirectly. That's the chatter. And now the Florida State Money Perch, who is in a whole different compartment from the people we talk to over here. You know, these people are not connected. And when they're saying the same things and you connect the dots along the way, you get a good picture of what they perceive to be what's going on. Florida State Money Perch, not just him, perceives that it looks like SEC has at least taken the welcome mat out of the plastic bag. Maybe they haven't unfurled it yet. But the SEC, and that is why JD, our great caller, Mr. Seminole here in the PATC community, the last conversation I had with him, it's why I comfortably make this prediction. I don't think you're going to hear any negative messaging coming out of any ESPN mouthpieces about the value, the future of the Florida State University as a whole, but more specifically their football program or their athletic department. I think those days are over. Feinbaum being wishy-washy, yes. Don't think you're going to see that anymore. I will be shocked if Paul Feinbaum says something like Florida State is at the bottom of what the SEC is going to be targeting, like he just said a couple months ago. I don't think he's going to be making those specific perceived negative statements about Florida State's value. I don't think you're going to hear about it. And I mentioned this last week, or even the week before. because of the chatter. And now the Florida State Money Perch, who is separate from our other chatter, saying the same thing. Yeah. No declaration. No saying, we did not say here on October 19th, Florida State's going to be an SEC member. When that story develops, and we're a long ways away from that, we will report it when we get it. But we're giving you a peek of the perceptions of people that have money, that have a whole lot of interest in where the Seminoles play their games, who they play, where they play, on what platform they play, people who give up money to their NIL collectives. That's the perception of where the Seminole Money Perch sits today, October 19th. And they sat there on October 15th. It took us 4 days to get to this point that I could report to you all. Take that as you will. Disagree, that's fine. Let me know that Florida State is 80% going to the Big Ten or staying in the ACC or is getting to the Big 12. You can do that here at Peek Around the Corner. You can disagree with the fat guy from Minnesota, no problem at all. So I'm going to open up the phone lines, going to open up the comments with the donations, and you can have the floor. You can talk about anything in college football. You can talk about the Michigan investigation. However you feel about it, you can talk about the Money Perch, or you can talk about the Buckeyes against the Nittany Lions. You can talk about anything you want in college football. Let me open up the phone lines right now. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. The lines are open. And let me see if there's any other news.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas is on the line. The floor is yours, good sir.
Holy smokes, Greg.
Yes, holy smokes. That's true. That is true.
I mean, it's an interesting development. It really is. And it doesn't surprise me because I think the SEC, I think some schools in the SEC probably had a come to Jesus moment about the Big Ten planting the flag in Florida. And I think maybe, it's still a possibility, but I certainly think that, whatever reservations that University of Florida, Georgia, or South Carolina might have about a Clemson and a Florida State, I think they were told the same thing that Texas A&M was told. But I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I could see this very. I mean, at this point, I probably think right now that I could probably see. At this point, I certainly can see Clemson and Florida State and NC State and maybe Virginia Tech or something going to the SEC, why the Big Ten picks up, UNC and possibly Miami, but just depends on whether or not, what happens with Virginia, whether or not they can, get them out, because they do know that the SEC wants into both the Virginia and North Carolina markets. So for them, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And, I don't know. It's just curious because I think right now, it's the horse trading, right now it's everybody's, it's like when you go to the movie and everyone's scrambling for the best seat.
Yeah.
I think everyone's doing that right now. And, I've said this before, and we're kind of entering a new era. As we get ready for this gold rush in 2026, you're going to see the autonomous conferences, or the Power 5 conferences, or whatever we want to call them now, the autonomous 4, they'll all be jockeying for different rules. But I still think that, and I've said this before on your show, I think 15 years from now, and I know people disagree with me, but when you have different NIL rules, when you have different transfer, issues with the transfer portal and disparity of money and realignment and all this stuff, I think in 15 years, you're going to see, and I'm going to call it right now, in 15 years, you're going to see football being decoupled from the conferences. People can think I'm crazy, but, as long as Ohio State and Penn State gets their check, I don't think they care whether or not they're football. I don't think they care so much about peer groups. They care about that check and that money. So, we'll see what happens. And I think that's coming down the road. I really do, because, at the end of the day, people are going to realize that for all the non-football sports, the travel is going to be ridiculous. And I think that you're going to see something where it will change. I just think that's going to change. And I also think that if you had the top 64 to 80 brands kind of piling together, and this is not the same as the NCAA holding all the rights like they did in the 80s. This is different, but I could certainly see, the top 64 to 80 brands, four division, kind of a separate, subdivision of its own, football playoff division, if you want to call it, with four different 16 to 20 team divisions / conferences, or whatever you want to call it, arranged by geographic, settings, or it could be, moved around. I don't know how they would do it, but they could do that. But I certainly see that at some point, the money disparity and the transfer portal and NIL and all the incentives for people to bend the rules to be competitive, at some point, these conferences are going to have to get together and agree to a standard set of rules. And I think that it'll probably result in almost a semi-pro amateur type league. And that's 15 years down the road, Greg, because I think the next 10 years is going to be, is going to manifest a lot of fault systems, fault lines right now in the current conference system. But right now, we've got to get to 26 and see how that looks like. Yeah. So I certainly think that things are changing, and I know people have disagreements, and that's fine. People can think I'm crazy and disagree with me, but that's just where I see it going in the next 15 to 20 years. And that people need to remember, I'm talking 15 to 20 years. I'm not talking 15 to 20 months. It'll be. I think the sport's changing, and I've mentioned before, people need to keep in mind, from 1960 to 1985. It was the OTA era. We had the three major networks that were, the NCAA held all the rights, and there were limited spots, and that's how it worked. And then in 1984, 1985 to 2025 is probably the cable era, where you had the bundle of packages. Now, as you kind of get into a direct-to-consumer model, you're looking at customer customization, and I think that's a powerful thing, and it's going to be a big driver on where the money is, because the money's going to be in matchups. It's not going to be in bundling things, and I think you'll see scheduling and arrangements in football based on what generates the highest amount of viewers for live sports, and that's where it's going. That's where it's headed. That's where it's been right now, and I think that's where it's going to continue to go, and I think that's going to upend a lot of the traditional arrangements that we've seen for the past 60, 70 years, and that's fine, because that's what the market does. But anyway, that's all I have for the day. Hopefully, you get through this alive, Greg, but thank you for all your work on.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, hopefully I get through it alive. You don't know, though. One of these days, there's a real good chance I'm just going to keel over dead here, the fat guy from Minnesota. And
one last thing.
Yeah.
Gophers are good, Badgers are evil, and Wolverines just suck. Yeah. That's all I have.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay. There's a real good chance. Like I said, I'm going to be taken out by a stretcher at the end of the Iowa-Minnesota game, no matter how it goes. And I probably won't survive the ambulance ride. So, yeah, this is one of my last days doing this show. Now, I want to show you something here. This is another tweet from The Athletic. The league claims that Michigan is using a vast network to steal opposing team signs. Source tell The Athletic. Like the Big Ten. Woo! Now, later on here in the article, It says here, Michigan State was approached by the league. Michigan State playing Michigan this week. Michigan State was approached by the league as a forewarning ahead of this weekend's matchup between the rivals in East Lansing. According to a source briefed on those conversations, upon learning of the pending investigation, Michigan State initially warned the Big Ten it might consider not playing Saturday's game out of concern for the health and safety of its players.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, can you just hold 1 second, sir?
Yep, go
Thank
ahead.
you. Appreciate it. Michigan State initially warned the Big Ten it might consider not playing Saturday's game out of concern for the health and safety of its players. On Thursday morning, Michigan State confirmed it will indeed play the game. Michigan was informed that it's being investigated, but has yet to be presented with the evidence compiled by the conference. Michigan's athletic director, Ward Manuel, spoke with Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti on Wednesday. But the league, the Big Ten and NCAA is investigating this. The league claims Michigan, as one source with knowledge of the allegations said, Michigan is using a vast network to steal opposing team signs. The league told Michigan State it has reviewed film that shows Michigan clearly knowing what play an opposing team is going to run before the play even occurs. This is today in this article. They keep updating this article of The Athletic. In the league, sources in the league saying they have this evidence. NCAA is investigating. And all I can say, Minnesota players at the end of the game threw up their hands and said they knew everything. They knew our hand signals. They even said hand signals. They knew exactly what we were doing before we even ran the play. You can't, look, I don't know what to tell you. Teams change their hand signals yearly. They can't change them weekly. This is one of the reasons why it's prohibited to do this stuff. I don't know. I don't know where this is heading, but the NCAA is investigating over possible in-person scouting of opponents and gathering up all this information on hand signals. Immaculate, the floor is yours. Michigan, Florida State, Iowa versus Minnesota. What's going on, sir?
Oh, the Michigan story going on here. I honestly don't have very much feeling into it. I don't really care. Like the whole taking of signals of things happens now. If they're somehow electronically stealing signals, I don't know. It's kind of coming across like one of these things where, as you're saying, the Minnesota folks knew that they had their signals, but there's a difference between knowing someone is doing something and being able to prove it.
Yep.
And that might be where we're at here, where it's like everyone's looking at this going, man, they're doing something, but how do we prove this? How do you prove someone intercepted radio signals? How do you prove all this?
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. I mean, that's the crux of it all, right? Is there the evidence? Yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying. For me personally, I'm watching the Michigan State game and I'm watching the Purdue game. And Michigan's defense has been killing it. Like, no one could do anything against it.
Yeah.
If that changes in these two games, because Michigan State...
It won't change. It won't change.
Out of the way
because Michigan has already done the... If it's true what they're doing... They've already bottled up the information. It's not like Michigan State can go change their hand signals right now.
No, but that's exactly what I'm suggesting they would do, is they change their hand signals for this game. And don't normally do that week to week.
It takes a whole off season to learn. I mean, well...
I would, maybe not the whole entire thing, but you're going to have to come up with something.
Yeah.
If you're seeing this, you have to come up with something. It's not easy, but if you don't, then all the rest of your preparation doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you can do all this prep for the team, but it doesn't matter if the other team knows exactly what you're doing. So first off, you have to change that up so that way the team doesn't know what you're doing. I mean, you could do all the same stuff you've been doing every week, and if you change up your signals, then that throws them off. Then that might actually be your best usage of time. I don't know. I'm just saying, if I was them and I believe that there is something to this, I would be working day and night to come up with some new signals that I could figure out with the team. And that's what I would do. I could be wrong, but I think they'll do that. And if we see a big change in the points scored against Michigan these next two games, then I might look at this and go, maybe there's something to this. But as for now, I don't know how this gets proved. I don't know.
Well, I don't think. Let me be careful here, Immaculate. First of all, Michigan could be 100% innocent, and opening up an investigation does not mean you're guilty.
Nope.
But on the other hand, you just don't open up an investigation because someone complains. In the way that, if you read the Athletic article, at least a couple of their sources have the perception that they've got the goods on Michigan on this. They could be wrong, but I don't think this is just so we got a complaint, therefore we open up an investigation. I think they might have a little bit more than a complaint. I mean, they use the word vast. What they use? Vast, complex. I forgot what word they used here.
I don't know I don't remember the exact term, but they're at least suggesting that there's just a plethora of evidence on this happening, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
Yep, we'll find out.
It's a little strange because they were going after Harbaugh for the hamburger thing, and Michigan kind of preempted them, right? Took it out of the NCAA's hands by doing their own suspension and daring them to do even more. So it's, it kind of almost seems maybe connected. Like, well, we're not going in that direction anymore, but here, we got this put on our table. So
vast network. Vast network is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. What else you got, Immaculate?
Just about the Florida State stuff.
Yeah.
As we've been saying, the SEC would be dumb, would be stupid to let the Big Ten get down there. So to see the SEC now starting to change its tune, if what you're saying is true, I think that then, the whole idea of at least getting them by 2027, well, that means an announcement by at least 2025. And I actually think it might come quicker than that. I mean, we could see movement on that next year. And, I give the SEC enough credit to see the danger in allowing the Big Ten to kind of pierce their little regional thing that they got going on. You don't want the big bad outside coast-to-coast conference with 3 networks, in their pocket to come breaking into Tallahassee, which is at the heart of your territory.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I definitely thought that. But, the big question comes in, you're seeing with a lot of people is, the North Carolinas, the North Carolina States, the Virginias, the Virginia Techs, and people not seeing value or seeing value there. And that's where I find this all to be interesting, because I don't think the SEC is getting Florida State unless this is a much bigger move. So when people say, well, why would these schools get taken? I would say it's so that a move can happen at all. Do you see much reason in that? Like, Florida State doesn't move if there aren't other schools moving. And we already see that North Carolina has come out with a public-facing vote against the rest of the conference.
Yeah, yes.
I don't think they're doing that unless they've gotten word from some schools of some interest, right? Like,
oh, yes.
You're not going far.
Yep.
So people are questioning their value, and it's kind of like, why are we questioning their value? I'm just looking at their their actions and letting that tell me that they have interest in them. And, people can think on that what they want, but them having interest in them by the Big Ten means that North Carolina State can go to the SEC. And that solves the North Carolina issue. Would you agree?
Yes. Yep. I agree. I mean, North Carolina has value to both conferences. They would both be they are very, very interested. Everyone that should not be in question. I know people question everything, but that should not be in question.
Right. Yeah. To me, I think it's much more viable to then start questioning the Virginia situation. If folks want to look at that and say, well, I don't see the value in Virginia, or I don't see the value in Virginia Tech. Fair enough. But I tend to think that the SEC probably wouldn't mind getting one of them. Definitely don't think they'd want both. And if the Big Ten is getting North Carolina, I don't see why the combination of North Carolina and Virginia is bad. When we look at Big Ten history, first two picks were Penn State and Nebraska. Big brand picks. These are schools you want to win. The next two picks, Maryland and Rutgers. These are expanding the geography, getting into big research schools, getting into geographic locations, and schools that probably don't mind losing as much if it happens.
Yeah.
About a balance. Now we get USC, Oregon, and Washington all coming in. To a lesser degree, UCLA as well. These are all schools you want to see get some wins. These aren't schools that, especially when it's the likes of Oregon, that if they start losing, you're actually going to lose some of your value with them. Bringing in schools of like North Carolina and Virginia, they lose zero value to the conference if they lose games. They're more academic ads, they're research ads, they're geographic ads, and they start to get you down that coastline. So in the future, if you're looking at a Georgia Tech, a Miami, Notre Dame, to me, it's about building towards something else. And the Big Ten, like it or not, has had a love affair with wanting to get North Carolina. And if you're North Carolina, I don't think you want to go to the Big Ten without at least one other friend. And that's why I look at Virginia. I don't know. People can think what they like on it, but I think North Carolina, Virginia to the Big Ten, FSU, Clemson, North Carolina State, and Virginia Tech to the SEC. Both conferences go to 20 and stop. And then we see from there, that's 6 schools that's going to take considerable value from the ACC. They're going to have to renegotiate that contract, and this thing just starts to get even more squirrely after that. So that's where I see it going. Until I see something that changes my mind on that, which is entirely possible, I think that's where we're going, and I think it could be as early as next year. I don't know what you think on that.
Well, the timing of it is, been told that the next action will be the first quarter of 2024. I mean, I would think the earliest immaculate for a school for one of these ACC top brand schools to join another conference is the earliest, probably 2026, right?
But that would have to be announced in 2024. If we go by old rules, right? Like
yeah. That's why that's why I say the earliest 2026. Now the Money Purge said 2027. So I don't think
smart. You don't want to build. You don't want to go too far with what you're telling people and then have it not be true. So you kind of give a conservative estimate, because if it gets quicker than that, then they don't look bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of want to just kind of like with the ACC folks that supposedly talk with Jim Williams. They're putting out 2030, 2031.
Okay.
Well, that's their perspective. That's what they want in the negotiation, right? They want more time, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the finale. It'll all get worked out, but it does show that they're all at the table having to talk.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So anyways, not much more than that. As far as our game, it's so much fun watching everyone start to come around on Iowa a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
People are starting to finally realize, like, look, they are banged up as hell on offense. Now, that's no excuse, and I still think their offense is poor no matter what.
Yeah.
But what they're doing and what they could potentially do with no offense, it's at least something to pay attention to and take notice of the statistical anomaly of it all is pretty fascinating.
Yep. Yeah.
But anyways, we don't want to go too much into that on this week.
Well, you're right. People are coming around in Iowa. Unfortunately, I had to come around on them late in August, and I picked them to win the Big Ten West over Wisconsin. I grudgingly tip my cap and give the Hawkeyes all the respect. Having said all that, it's still going to kill me when you guys beat us Saturday. I mean, it's going to literally put a hole right into my heart. So I'm just warning
you guys if I'd seen much coming from your offense, but
Darius Taylor, if he comes back, I mean, he was just named, huh?
Is that your running back?
Yeah, he was just named all freshman running back of the country today or yesterday. There's a big photo of it on the first team. He's absolutely spectacular. But he's
that front seven for Iowa, though, man.
Huh?
That front seven for Iowa is just so good and so in tune with each other that in order to get much of a run against them, you've got to get some passing game going.
Yeah. All right. Well, we don't have that, so.
We'll see if Iowa can continue having the statistically worst offense in the entire country and still make it to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah,
if that happens,
you got a really good. If you get through Minnesota, baby, you got a real good shot. However, the Big Ten West race wide open this Saturday after the Gophers beat Iowa 13-12. Book it.
All right, man.
All right.
We'll have to wait and see.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the phone call.
Yeah, good day, man. Good talking to you.
Yeah. Now, I'm getting a lot of comments here, and I love. Look, I understand the defense of Michigan here. Jared McKinley, Antoine Johnson. We used to steal signals. If you can figure it out, your coach is not smart enough. Other comments on the board. I respect all those comments and everything, but it isn't getting to the heart of the allegations, if the allegations are true. Since 1994, you cannot go in-person scouting to your future opponents and steal hand signals. Or even during the game, you can't use electronic means to steal hand signals and pass that information on lickety-split to your coaches. And if other schools are doing it, maybe they are, then go to the NCAA, go to the Big Ten with your evidence. See, none of these comments here are really getting to the heart of the allegations. If they are true, then I don't know what the penalty is going to be, but Michigan is doing something they should not be doing. Still, you cannot switch hand signals weekly in football. Your players would all get so. You can't do that. And people are talking about how Bo and Woody stole. Yes, they did. The rule is 1994. It's been on the books since 1994. And nobody is disputing stealing hand signals during the game. It's in-person scouting before. And look, I don't know if the allegations are true. Don't know. It sounds like there's sources believe they are when they're talking to The Athletic, when they're talking to Yahoo Sports, especially this new Athletic article that just came out. A vast network of stealing signs. That is prohibited. You cannot do in-person scouting to grab a team's signals. If other schools are doing it, then lace them. Lace them. Get to them. But it's just not allowed. I'm not sure if true the Michigan wins this season will be vacated. I doubt it. I doubt it. I hope not. I hope they don't do that. Michigan, they're going to win all those games anyways, and by a lot. But again, so I hope, hopefully that doesn't happen. But again, just to say everyone does it, that's just not a good defense. It's just and that why do we use it against these bad teams? We should have done it against TCU. Well, first of all, you didn't know you were going to be playing against TCU. Maybe after that TCU game, you decided to put this into works of doing this vast network of hand signal. Who knows? But the allegation's not about TCU. It's about this season thus far that we know of. Big Ten West mad at Michigan, Ohio State. Again, Nathan, none of these allegations have to do with Ohio State and Penn State. I understand the defense. Would Harbaugh actually do this against Bowling Green? I don't know. I don't know if he's done it at all. Again, it doesn't. Harbaugh may be a lot of things, but he isn't stupid. Maybe Harbaugh doesn't even know this is happening. I find that very odd if he didn't know, if it is happening. Minnesota, Iowa is the lowest over-under in 20 years. It was 31.5. I think it might be up to 32 or 32.5. It doesn't matter if Michigan's played against bad teams, though. Again, none of these comments are really getting to the heart of the allegations. Have they been doing this? Has been a vast network. Have they been doing in-person scouting of stealing people's hand signals? And if other teams are doing it, what's the evidence on that? If it comes down they've been doing it, there's going to be some sort of punishment. And again, for those who say this shouldn't be a rule, okay, it shouldn't be a rule, but it's in the books now. And it's been in the books since 1994. I don't know if the Golden Gophers complain, but they did complain about Michigan doing their hand signals from the very, very beginning of the game. It almost like the Gopher players were one guy just threw up his hands and said, there's nothing they could do. Michigan knew exactly what they were running. And, of course, Michigan was going to blow up Minnesota anyways. But there's a competitive aspect to it. If Michigan has been doing this and other teams haven't, and it's against the rules, then what are you doing? If it's true, what are you doing, Michigan? If it's true, there's going to be, I don't know what the punishment would be. Maybe losing a couple scholarships. Who knows? I have no idea. It's not going to be vacated of wins, though. It's not about the practices. It's about the games themselves. Going to the game with people determined to grab the hand signals, look at the play, what happened after the hand signal, doing an analysis. Whenever Michigan, Ohio State has a chance to win a national championship, I'm glad you have that opinion. I don't quite understand it. The in-person spying sounds absurd. The electronic signal stealing sounds plausible. And again, it definitely... It sounds like, I should not say definitely, it sounds like the investigation is everything, is both vast network, but again, Michigan could be found innocent of the whole thing. But if they're found guilty, there'll be some sort of punishment. No question about it. Is the sign stealing for just this year, previous years as well? Tater Tots, we do not know. They haven't mentioned other years, so it's probably just this year. Let me check the article one more time. But it looks like the Big Ten and the NCAA, according to the Athletic, it sounds like the sources have a perception is that the league has the goods on them, the Big Ten. Now, they could be wrong. It doesn't, I'm looking at the article. It does not indicate a specific year, if it's just this year or last year. You're right, Nathan. Minnesota does not have a complex offense. You're correct about that. According to the Athletic article, according to the league told Michigan State it has reviewed film that shows Michigan clearly knowing what the play the opposing team is going to run before the play occurs. Now, how Michigan gets that information, if they're just stealing the signs within the game itself, that's legit. If they're doing it prior to the game, if they're sending out personnel to prior games, then it's illegal, regardless if Minnesota, Rutgers, or anybody else runs a complex offense or not. I am doing a doubleheader on Saturday. I'm doing the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions and Minnesota and Iowa, one right after the other. I'm going to be on live for about 8 hours. It's going to be a little crazy. Even Scott Frost never stooped so low to steal signals. Yes, sir. The doubleheader is planned. The phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. And again, it's not like you can't just... If the allegations are true, Michigan has all of Michigan State's hand signals. Do they really need them to beat them? No, but they have this knowledge. And it's to change your hand signals weekly is not a doable thing in football. Your players are going to they're not going to be able to know what play you're running, what packages you're running. This is why coaches are paranoid. They do not want people in their practices. When I go to a Minnesota Golden Gophers practice, I can't even film it. Can't do anything with it. Can't use my phone. And this is why since 1994, the rules in place that you cannot, that you can't be doing in-person scouting to steal another team's hand signals. And you got to know if obviously Jim Harbaugh knows the rule. So either he doesn't, if this is true, if the allegations are true, and he doesn't know this is going on, that he doesn't have control of his program. And if he knew this was going on, yeah, then he's going to get a penalty. I don't know what that penalty would be. Maybe he'd be suspended for a couple games more. Maybe they lose a scholarship or two. I'm looking at some more reporting of the story. Trying to get more reporting. Yeah. Here's Michael Spaeth, Michigan reporter, kind of guy who covers Michigan. This NCAA garbage regarding Michigan is deflate gate with the Patriots. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Why is the rule in place? Or everyone does it. It's either one or the other, right? No one ever does anything wrong in college football, according to beat writers of the teams that are being investigated. We shall see. We shall see. I'm still trying to check a few things here. Okay. And of course, there's a lot of rumors that I'm not going to report on when it comes to this story. There's a lot of stuff out there that is not confirmed, and I'm definitely not going to talk about it. Jeez. Again, yeah, that's always the defense. Everyone does it, or the rules should not be in place at all. So if it was up to beat writers of all these teams, there'd be either there'd be no rules. You can do whatever you want. If the beat writers of these teams had any authority over the game at all. Again, Michigan could be completely innocent. But again, this rule's been in place since 1994 because these teams can't. I mean, NFL has these rules, guys. NFL has these rules. So it's the rule. We'll see what happens. Maybe there's no evidence. Maybe this is a grand conspiracy. Maybe they're just trying to get Harbaugh. It could be. It could be. It sounds like there's at least a perception that there's a clip going around now that shows Shiano of Rutgers possibly alluding to some funny business going on by Michigan during the game. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's Ohio State. There's something about Ohio State allegedly knowing about this. And they got an investigator onto Michigan. Like, what is going on? Yikes. I don't know. Again. Michigan beats Rutgers anyways, probably. If it's true. Michigan whoops Minnesota, of course. If it's true. But you're going to be playing, if this is going on, it cannot continue to go on. You can't have this stuff going on. You can't. It's too much of an advantage. If other teams are not doing it, and if you are doing it, it's just too much of a great advantage. You're going to beat the bad teams. You're going to make them look, you're going to beat them up even more. This is a huge advantage. This is why coaches are so paranoid. And Shiano and Fleck are good friends. Who knows? Maybe Maybe Shiano gave Fleck a tip. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Yeah, you can't just know everybody's hand signals, and the other team has to try to figure out your hand signals during the game, because everyone does that. That's not a nothing burger. It's not a nothing burger, if true. I DM'd it to you, Greg. Let me take a look at it here. Maybe I can even post it. Thanks, Immaculate. Let me take a look at it. Oh, you never know what's going to pop up in college football. Tell you that. You never know what's going to happen next.
Well, there's some stuff going on out there, so we just got to slow it down a little bit. There's some things going on that aren't right as well, so we'll talk about how to handle it.
Ooh, okay. I am going to post that. Thank you, Immaculate. Again. Okay, so this is Greg Schiano. This is Greg Schiano. Halftime, Rutgers and Michigan. The Greg Schiano halftime interview versus Michigan seemed very odd at the time. Let's take I don't know if this is going to be loud enough for you all. I'm going to play it. Let me know what you think.
For your team in the first half, some that cost you. How do you clean that up in the second half?
Well, there's some stuff going on out there, so we just got to slow it down a little bit. There's some things going on that aren't right as well, so we'll talk about how to handle it.
Does Michigan defense keeping Gavin Wimsatt in this passing game in check? How do you adjust?
Well, just got to keep playing. In the game, we just got to keep playing.
All right, thanks, Coach. Corey, back to you.
We're going to play that once again.
Coach,
Greg Schiano interview
in the first half,
halftime.
some that cost you. How do you clean that up in the second half?
Well, there's some stuff going on out there, so we just got to slow it down a little bit. There's some things going on that aren't right as well, so we'll talk about how to handle it.
Does Michigan defense keeping Gavin Wimsatt in this passing game in check? How do you adjust?
Well, just got to keep playing. In the game, we just got to keep playing.
All right, thanks, Coach. Corey, back to you. Coach, 4 penalties for your team in the first.
Interesting. I think we don't know for sure, but I think he was alluding to something going on. Look, if you're playing a team that has more talented than you, gonna flatten you anyways, and you call a play, you do a hand signal, you call an audible, and the defense audibilizes right to where you don't want them every single time. You pick up on that. Yeah, he may not have been talking about this, but he may have as well. It's too bad they didn't have those signals for the Bowling Green game. Could have said, look, if we're going to say that if a team does have hand signals and does for weeks ahead of the team that you're playing, and that you're going to play a perfect game if you stole those hand signals, of course you're still not going to play a perfect game. But if you are doing this, and again, we don't know if Michigan is doing this, we don't know if they're guilty of the allegations, you have a huge advantage over your opponent. It doesn't mean you're not going to throw a pick. It doesn't mean you're not going to fumble. It doesn't mean you're not going to give up a touchdown or some points or some first down. It just means you have a huge advantage. I think everyone would agree with that, right? Right? Again, we don't know if it's true or not. Jared Jones says Schiano knew what was happening. We don't know of the two teams making the allegations. We don't know if they were false allegations. There's no way of knowing. But there are sources. There's a Big Ten league source that have told the Athletic. We just read. We've read it a couple times here. The new Athletic article says a league source told Michigan State that they have credible evidence that Michigan has a vast network of improper stealing signs, in-person scouting. I mean, so we don't know if the allegations are false. We don't know the two teams. I do know, the only thing I can say about the Golden Gophers is there are players who threw up their hands and said they knew our hand signals from the very start of the game. Calvin Hobbs, this is beyond pathetic. 2 loser programs got dusted, and this is how they respond. We don't know who the 2 programs are. Michigan changed all their signs before the game last year. Okay. Have you ever played a down of football? Yes, I have. We were shutting down a team, and I once made a tackle near the sidelines to preserve the shutout. It was a last-second long run by the opposing running back. I made a tackle down the sideline. After the game, I came off the field, and my mother yelled at me and said, "Greg, you should have let the other team score." It was the most bizarre conversation I've had with my mother, of years of bizarre conversations. Yeah, I played it down in football. I'm not sure what you're getting at here. And I'm not even saying Michigan is guilty. But again, there's a reason why there's a rule that prohibits in-person scouting of your opponents. And I'm just relaying what sources are telling the Athletic. The Big Ten has concluded they're the ones who told Michigan State that they have credible evidence against Michigan. I think it's a reach to imply Shiano was 100%, no question about it. It was not 100% alluding to signal stealing. I agree with you, Gerald. Did anyone watch that game? First half was sloppy. Rutgers had a great opening drive. Let me ask the Michigan Wolverine fans a question. Wouldn't you agree if one team, one football program had a vast, complex system of stealing hand signals weeks before you played your opponent? If one team was doing that and the other team wasn't, wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree that that is a huge advantage? I put out the question. Just give me a yes or no. Anybody can answer that question. Yes or no. Yes means huge advantage. No means no advantage. It's not a big advantage. The question is, in fact, I'll put up the poll. I'll put up a poll question right now. Won't you agree that in-person scouting of future opponent gives team a great advantage? Wouldn't you agree that in-person scouting of future opponents gives a team a great advantage over their opponent? Yes or no? The question is too long. I got to change it. Wouldn't you agree that in-person scouting of future opponent gives a team a great advantage? Poll starts now. Wouldn't you agree that in-person scouting of future opponent gives a team a great advantage if a team is actually doing it? Buckshot Kid. From the words of Eddie Guerrero, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. True, but if you're cheating and you get caught, like Eddie Guerrero would get caught sometimes by the referee, you get disqualified. Although you won't have to give up your championship, because a champion doesn't give up their belt if they're disqualified or counted out. Buckshot Kid makes a good comment. But if you cheat and you get caught, if the evidence is there, if there was a private investigator figuring this stuff out, then you got to pay the consequences. Again, the vote is going on. Wouldn't you agree that in-person scouting of a future opponent gives a team a great advantage? If one team is doing it, the other team is not, I'm going to give the vote 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, 83%. 83% of the vote is yes, the team does get a great advantage if they're doing in-person scouting of a future opponent and the other team is not.
Call from
Tater Tot.
Tater Tots is on the line. The floor is yours, good sir.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to come in and say this as someone who tries to watch almost every Big Ten game each week. Michigan, they start slow in almost every game. It's in the second half when they pick up. I think they're outscoring their opponents like 93-0 in the third quarter. So it would be they're definitely stealing signs, the probably in-game deal. A lot of coaches seem to have been saying that. But if they were scouting them out beforehand and they had them with future reference, wouldn't you see it through the whole game? Wouldn't they be up huge at half? Even the Minnesota game, with that touchdown at the end, Minnesota was still kind of in it. It was only a 14-point game.
That's right.
That's the only thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead. No, please, you go ahead. You please go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just, the Minnesota, that touchdown that we actually got against Michigan, I'm going to tell you something. That was an absolute fluke. So, look, you make a good point. If the in-person scouting, if they were guilty of that, if that gave such a team a great advantage, they should be able to get out to a hotter start. Logic would dictate that. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, that is. And, really, they've been like that the last 2 years, too. So to me, it looks more like, maybe they figure it out in the first half and then capitalize on it in the second half.
Yeah.
At least logically, it kind of looks that way. And with a team that is as talented as Michigan, you would really think that...
Can you hold on a second? I'm sorry, Tater Tots.
Of course.
You're making a great point, and I want you to be able to come back to it, and you get as much time as you want. Kelvin Hobbs, a massive whole 45 votes. Do you know how to poll? I actually do know how to poll Kelvin Hobbs. I actually do know how to poll. I have actually done polling. This is an unscientific poll. This is a small little poll with a question I could barely type out to a demographics that doesn't constitute the whole college football. This is not the margin of error on this poll is probably scientifically 50%. I know how to do polling, Calvin Hobb. You actually are asking a question to somebody who knows how to poll. This is an unscientific poll. This is a college football YouTube channel. We're having fun talking about an issue. Number one. Number two, Kelvin Hobbs. They're definitely stealing signs. They've been destroying teams in the second half. What a clown, you ignorant whatever are. I'm going to put you on a timeout. I have no problems with you disagreeing with the take, but you got to treat people in the chat room with respect. You can disagree with each other. I want you to disagree with each other. I want you to disagree with the host, because if you didn't disagree with me, this show would be boring. So, but you got to treat people with respect. I come back in on another show, but man, you've got to treat people. Don't call people ignorant bleeps. I'm not going to say the word in this college football YouTube chat room. Tater Tots, I apologize. The floor is yours. Go ahead. You're making a great point.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the only thing I was trying to say was Michigan's a really talented team. So, if they have those signs ahead of time, in my opinion, it is a really big advantage. And I feel like it would show from the very first snap. I mean, in their game against Indiana last week, they didn't even score in the first quarter. It was 7-0 Indiana when it came to the second quarter. So, they turned it on in the second quarter, but I don't know, it seems a little weird. And, earlier this season, Jim went after the NCAA, talking about NIL deals and how they're handling it poorly. And then obviously there's that whole thing with them, previously with, the COVID infraction and the cheeseburgers and the whatnot. I don't even know what half the story is, but it really does seem like the NCAA might have something out for them. Not saying it's not true. Maybe it is, but it's just an interesting logic point to think about.
Yeah.
Because to me, logically, it doesn't totally add up.
Two things. One is you make a very good defense of Michigan here. And it's the best one I've heard. It's actually the only good one I've heard so far. It's a logical defense of Michigan on why they are not doing this, because the advantage isn't showing up early in the game. Number two, I would disagree that this is an NCAA conspiracy against Harbaugh. I can understand why Michigan fans would think this way. Oh, because of the wording of the Athletic article where it said a league official, sources have told the Athletic that the league has told Michigan State they've got credible evidence, vast network. Michigan knows what the other teams are doing. So this is a Big Ten situation as well. Big Ten seems to know what is going on here, and there's evidence. That's the only I would shy away from the NCAA conspiracy argument, and I would lean heavily into a very good point that you made about if this is true, why isn't Michigan having a faster start in these games against teams that they easily dominate?
Right.
Okay.
So, that's just my take. That's all I got, So, obviously we'll see how it plays out. Need to see the evidence before, you make any sort of claim that.
We'll see what happens.
Come out in time.
We'll see what happens, and we'll cover this story however it goes.
Right.
However it goes.
All right. Well, thanks, Greg.
Appreciate it, Tater Tot. Call again, sir. Great call. Great call. Great call. Roman Maroney, if a team operates the same offense week after week and year after year, it's now cheating to watch film. This is sour grapes. It could be. We'll see. But then if there's evidence, we'll also find that out. You can watch film. Every team gets film, by the way, on their opponent. They're delivered the film, but it's not with hand signals.
Call from
Moen.
Vision
Accept, press
is.
1 to
Whoops,
send a voicemail.
I'm sorry. I screwed that up. Moen, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All righty. The floor is yours. People are coming after me left and right. What do you got to say, good sir?
Well, I think that's just indicative of the class of the fan base in that
Okay.
case.
All right, just relax on that. We don't want to do a broad strokes here. Right?
Okay. I'm just saying, walks like a duck, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Big Ten is telling people that they have compelling evidence unless there's compelling evidence.
Yeah,
so,
I got a feeling. Yes, I got a
they've
feeling you're
obviously
correct.
they've got surveillance of people within the Big Ten stadiums, you know, seeing people from or connected to the Michigan program in the stands at those games, probably in ticket sections directly across, you know, taking notes, things like that. It's not a nothing burger. It's a something burger.
Yeah.
Something's going on there. Now, we can sit here and argue, oh, you can steal calls here, but not steal calls here. But the rules state what the rules state.
Yeah.
It's an NCAA rule violation to do that.
And it has been for a long time.
Yeah, it has been for close to as long as I've been alive.
30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. So it's no different than basically what Bill Belichick was doing with the Patriots, except they were videotaping it to get the signals. Now, we don't know if there's video evidence of this. If there is video evidence, as Keith Jackson would say, whoa, Nelly.
Yeah.
That's a whole other barrel of fish that we have to crack open and start shooting.
They use the term vast network in the Athletic article.
Yeah.
So who knows what it includes? We do not know at this point.
Yeah, and we don't know how long it's been going on either. But they will dig. But that Greg Schiano clip, boy, that sounded to me like he knew what was going on. And, you know, Greg, before he was at Rutgers, he was at Ohio State. So no love lost between him and Michigan for sure. The previous caller made the statement that, well, why wouldn't they just be blowing people out at the beginning? Well, if you're doing that and you're trying to cover it up, you want to make it so it doesn't look like you're doing that. You don't want to come out and just beat people pillar to post for 4 quarters. You don't want to make it obvious. You don't want to make it obvious.
And what I'm about to say is not. It's as weak as circumstantial evidence that you could possibly say. So don't look. I'm an old Gopher fan. We've been killed many times every year since as long as I've been alive. So watching the Gophers take a defeat and getting crushed it's nothing new. This is not our first rodeo. We're going to get crushed again this year. Probably 3 or 4 more times. What was odd to me was at the time, right after the game, a Gopher player threw up his hands and said, they had our hand signals from the very get-go. There's nothing we could do. They knew exactly what we were doing. I've heard Gopher players talk about getting smashed all the time, but they've never said that before. And to me, it almost like, a player knows, there was more than one player, by the way, who said it. To me, it's like, so these players, they're using the language of, hey, they had our hand signals from the very beginning. And of course, Schiano and PJ Fleck are about as two, can't get any closer friends in the Big Ten than those two guys. So I'm just wondering if the coaches kind of in the sidelines said, this is speculation, Mo and Vision, okay? I'm just wondering, like, if some coach in the sideline early in that Gopher Wolverine game threw up his hands and said, God dang, they got to, every time I go to a different, an audible hand signal, they know what we got. And of course, the players are hearing this. And at the press conference, they just threw up their hands and said, yeah, they knew what we were doing. So I don't know. It's very weak speculation on my part. But Gopher players did talk about it at the end of this game. And I've never heard that before, ever, a Gopher players talking about the other team had our hand signals from the very beginning of the game.
Right. Well, that's probably a situation where you've run a play so successfully in practice, and then suddenly it gets stuffed. I mean, sure, that's a possibility, but if it gets stuffed 9 out of 10 times, that's,
Well, you know how it
that's
is.
possible, but
You
you
call
can't be
a play.
100%.
You call a play. The other defense lines up. You audibilize out of the play. And then the team lines up again immediately, knowing exactly what you're going to do. You catch on to it pretty quick that the other team knows exactly what you're trying to do.
Right.
Again, just speculation, not much. We'll see. We'll see if this is true or not. We don't know. We don't know. And but we're going to find out. And I think it's not going to take very long either.
No, I don't either. Like I said, if the Big Ten's listing credible evidence, that
Yeah.
I'd imagine they have to have some kind of physical evidence. They're not going to base it off of hearsay. So I thought Harbaugh was looking to get out last year. I think he's probably still looking to get out. He wants to chase that Super Bowl ring. So, but I'd hate to see a situation where he Pete Carroll's them, where he leaves and then leaves the next administration to deal with all the crap,
Yeah.
like happened with USC. So, but I would put out there, I've heard this crazy rumor about Ohio State and Ryan Day hiring an ex-FBI agent. That's nonsense, people. We don't really, we wouldn't go that far. This is probably other coaches. We haven't played them yet this year. So,
yeah.
And I don't think they stole our signals. I think we just played like crap last year. So,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
Gophers, I'm rooting for the Gophers on Saturday, Greg. That's all.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, pal. I need it.
Go get that pig.
Huh? Yeah, go get that pig. How do we
Go get
score
that
a
pig.
point, though? That's my question.
Let's see.
Darius
Block a punt,
Taylor.
maybe. Block a
Darius
punt.
Taylor has to be back. And we don't have word if he is back or not. He's got to be back.
Yeah. Well, will he be back next year?
I don't know.
That's the
He just
question.
signed with he's just signed a big deal with a local organization here in Minnesota. So people are starting to get a little optimistic. Like they're being more proactive with Darius Taylor than they were with Bucky Irving when Oregon came in the middle of the night and took him from us before he went in the transfer portal. Minnesota's being more proactive. Is it going to be enough to keep him? I don't know. We'll see.
You can just say it, Greg. They induced him. They induced him to leave Minnesota.
Who?
Oregon induced.
Oh yeah. They
Bucky,
contacted him.
yeah.
Well, that's not even a. I mean, that's not even hearsay. Way before he put his name in the portal, multiple articles from Oregon and Minnesota were talking about how Oregon is trying to get Bucky Irving. So that's not even. And Oregon can't when they join the Big Ten next year, they're going to have to cool it with that because they'll be. They just better cool with that. Now, on the other hand, though, Minnesota, the collectives were not ready to battle for Bucky Irving. Now they're a little bit more ready with Darius Taylor, but he could still leave, no question about it.
Yeah, now you just got to worry about finding a quarterback.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm not optimistic at all. I think Minnesota, when we open up those magazines next year in the offseason, I think they're going to be the number 16, 17, 18, right next to the word Minnesota. Not optimistic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll root for you anyway, just
All right,
because I want to
appreciate
make
it.
Immaculate mad and see Iowa lose. So you block those punts, you return them for touchdowns. I think you guys got a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we don't do
All right.
that, so. All right.
Well, do it. Do it this week, Greg. Do it this week.
Got it. All right. Appreciate
Take
it.
it easy.
All right, man. Woo! A lot of action. A lot of action in the chat room. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of stuff I just cannot go with. Yes. Okay. Here's a post right here. This is somebody who tweeted at me. Well, that's weird. If that was the case, then why did Minnesota head coach say it was the best team he faced in 11 years as head coach? Because Michigan very well could be the best team that PJ Fleck has coached in the last 11 years. With or without the in-person scouting of their hand signals, if they did it. Again, this does not take... Again, if Michigan did know, it didn't... It isn't... two of them don't have to be separated. Michigan is a fantastic football team. PJ Fleck could hold the opinion that this is the best talented team, coach team he has faced. Absolutely 100% true. And it could be that they did something improper at the same time. Both can be true. Both can be true. The two things can be true. Absolutely. Absolutely. Or Michigan could be completely innocent of these allegations. Greg, I need to send you some maroon and gold Kool-Aid. Again, who's going to be the quarterback next year, Tony? That's my question. Who's going to be the quarterback in Minnesota next year? It's not going to be me, Tony. I've retired. Who's going to be the quarterback? The Greek Rifle is struggling mightily. And it's not... You're going to bring up the true freshman, our top quarterback recruit from the state of Arkansas, who's having an unbelievable year. Like, I'll get into that later with you, Tony, but he's not going to start as a true freshman. So we need to bring in a transfer quarterback, and we haven't done that. I don't know. I'm not optimistic. Market Tech, I took Iowa at -3.5 because they probably will score more than 14 points on defensive specialties. You know what? Unfortunately, that statement's correct. Iowa will score at least 7 points on defense and special teams, but they'll probably score 14.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. Anxiety, filling up every space, no privacy.
yeah, Gophers do have another beast at running back. True freshman. Yeah, I'll try to find it here. Let me try to find it. I mean, I know most people haven't seen him. He was out for the shoot. I did not like it. I did not save it. Oh man. I thought I did. Hold on. Here we go. Mid-season, the Athletic mid-season all-freshman team. Darius Taylor was named to the team, all-freshman team. I think he still leads the Big Ten in rushing yards, even though he missed the Michigan game, didn't play last week. He missed the last part of the Northwestern game with a high ankle sprain. Darius Taylor, yeah, he's if again Minnesota's trying to be proactive, the collectives, but he could be leaving. Who knows? Hopefully not. But he's an absolute beast, and he's our one chance to beat at beating Iowa. Mr. Monkey says Minnesota 3, Iowa 2. Fleck did coach on the Greg Schiano, and they are great friends. They are. So I don't know. Maybe there was some communication between those two. I don't know. We're just speculating. Or maybe there wasn't. Matt says the weakest allegation ever. Patriots were loaded with talent, but they also cheated. Both things can be true at the same time. Nathan, what is James Franklin's record against the Buckeyes? 1-9? It hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. Remember when they went Tony Harding on JT Barrett's back in 2017? Wow. The squirt gun has to go. Some great Big Ten rivalries this weekend. Rival games. No question about it, Nathan. Well, I want to shut this live show down. I want to thank everybody for coming on in. It was, we talked about Florida State in the Money Perch, and we talked about the Michigan breaking story. They are under NCAA investigation for in-person scouting weeks before they play their opponents. We'll see what evidence they have. It sounds like from the Athletic that there is sources within the Big Ten saying they have credible evidence. They told Michigan State about it. Michigan thought about maybe skipping out of the game. Even if it is guilty, even if Michigan has done this vast network, that's the word that the Athletic used in describing a source and describing what Michigan has been up to. Even if it all is true, what is the penalty? Some more suspension from Jim Harbaugh, maybe for next year, and Jim Harbaugh may not be back next year. Maybe Michigan loses a couple scholarships. But again, there are rules. There are rules, and to say everybody does it or that the rule doesn't matter, those aren't the best defenses. We did have a great defense of Michigan from Tater Tot saying, look, if Michigan is guilty of this charge, then why are they so slow to begin the game? Why does it take in the second half to really gear up? It doesn't make any sense. A great defense of Michigan from Tater Tots. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if Michigan is guilty or not. We shall see. We're going to be covering this story along with all the other college football stories going on as we go into week 8. So buckle up, brace for impact. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so. Do so and then hit that notification bell to make sure that you get notified the next time we're coming up live. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other.